Good morning, everyone. My name is Robert Woods. I am the Veterans Agent for the town of Dayton. Today, our nation came together to honor our veterans and commemorate the legacy of profound service and sacrifice that have upheld in pursuit of a more perfect union. Through their steadfast defense of America's ideas, our service members have endured our country, still stand strong. Our founding principles still shine, and nations around the world know the blessing of freedom. As we offer our sincere appreciation and respect to our veterans, to their families, and to those who are still in harm's way, and to those we have laid to rest, let us rededicate ourselves to serving them as well as they have served the United States of America. Today we are here to honor a Congressional Medal of Honor winner, Frederick C. Anderson. He was recently found in a local cemetery through the efforts of Mr. Charles Mozagle. At this time, I would like to ask Mr. Mozagle to tell us exactly how this all became and why are we here today. So Charlie, can you please explain to us how all this unfolded, sir?
Okay, this guy in the corner over here, Bobby Moskowitz, and I are in the habit of walking around cemeteries and reading the markers on World War I, World War II, and Civil War people. Bobby likes to read, he's a Civil War nut, and I usually go around with a rubber mallet fixing the flags. Bobby came upon a Medal of Honor recipient in our own cemetery in Pawtucket, and he got a little bit upset. There was no flag on there, and there was weeds all around it, and we went to the town hall, and we got some flags, and we fixed it. Then we found out there was another Medal of Honor recipient there, and through a few weeks of tracing it down, we finally got him. Then Bob and I got in the habit of flagging the whole cemetery. It's like 28 acres and 20,000 graves. Bob and I then started getting involved with the Medal of Honor people from Rhode Island. There's like 35 of them, Bob. So we're you get onto that.
Bob, would you like to join us up here, please?
So he's my best friend, Woody.
He's your best friend?
Yeah. No, you stay.
And he happens to be one of my best friend's fathers.
I know.
How bizarre is that?
We started to go on websites. We were finding these people from Rhode Island. I found a website called Medal of Honor Lost in History. And I went on that, and I found out there were 451 of them lost. And one of them was somewhere in Somerset. So while Bobby was working on Rhode Island people, I was working on the Somerset grave, and we just went to different places together and found different information. Bobby was working on one. I finished mine ahead of him. I'm way ahead of you now. But I found this paper saying a report of death, and I found it was buried in Dayton, and I passed it on to you, and I got a sore throat, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Charles.
It was very successful, Bobby, right? You did a good job. So now we're going to go back to working on the Rhode Island people, the Medal of Honor recipients.
Well,
I think we're going to write a book on it or something. What do you think?
Well, I don't know.
No. But then I got to, if it wasn't for you, Elizabeth Woody and Tammy, I'd still be looking. You know, I'm not.
I'd just like to explain a little that Charles came to me and was looking for Frederick C. Anderson. And, you know, when I initially heard his story, I thought it was going to be very difficult to find Frederick C. Anderson because there are 54 cemeteries in the town of Dayton. And Dave Marvell is our graves officer, and he was the first person that I contacted. And Dave didn't really have any recollection of Mr. Anderson. And I called our old graves officer, Dave Phillips, who now resides in North Carolina. And Dave didn't know anything about Mr. Anderson either. So I didn't know how we were going to find him. You know, and there was a gentleman in my barber shop, Timothy Rhymes, who was quite interested in the whole thing. And I think, you know, Timmy really did a lot of the legwork to help find Frederick Anderson through the help of Mr. Coster. He's a member of the Dayton Community Church. What is your capacity there, sir?
I'm one of the trustees. And I also take care of the cemetery. Everybody that's in the cemetery, I have an account of.
Right, so it was a joint effort.
That's where.
And, you know, I would like to thank everybody involved. And there's so much history behind the man and the medal that I think it's important that we recognize and honor Frederick C. Anderson in our town. He's buried in our town, and I think other people will speak today of his history, and, you know, I think I'll just let Mr. Marvell talk now, and he can tell us.
Hi, I'm the grades officer for Dayton. They've been doing it for about, I think, going on 5 years right now. I took it from Dave Phillips. Dave Phillips was a World War II vet. Very nice guy, works with community projects, helping kids when they're in trouble. And he touched me a lot, you know, as far as, you know, the true meaning of a veteran and what we need to do. So anyhow, he was helping me out with a particular person, and he had these 3x5 cards. He had multiple of them. He had like 3 cases of them. And so, like Dave Bob, I opened my mouth and said, you know what, that'll look good on an Excel spreadsheet. And Dave, so being real nice, said, can you do that? I said, I guess. So what made so what happened, make a long story short, I ended up taking, I don't know, there's like 53 cemeteries. I ended up taking all the information. He got into Excel. So I don't know, it was Tim Rhymes who called me and somebody said, hey, can you look up this lot number real quick and see where it is? So it's been boring the last couple of years, so I look it up. I said, yeah, Frederick Anderson, lot 51, section 3, go see Jack Costa. And he said, do you know what you have here? And I was just like, you know, doing other activity. I said, no, I don't. He goes, you have a Civil War veteran buried there. And everybody's been looking for this guy for the past year or so. So then when the emails start coming in, you know, we start getting things, basically, I'm gonna go through this right now, but like, you know, the great-granddaughter's got the Medal of Honor, she has this. There's also a flag, I believe, down in North Carolina.
Virginia.
Right. The sad part is, so, to give this guy recognition, I mean, I was thinking about it the other day, this guy died of a heart attack, probably in his 40s. And like, you know, Tim explained to me yesterday, you know, and I thought about it after. Here's a guy that probably worked hard all his life, never got any recognition, you know, and it took us 160 years later to finally sit down as a group and say, you know, let's pay respects to this fallen soldier. So I want to thank these guys for getting me motivated in this project, and I appreciate
You
it.
did a good job, Dave.
Thank
for
you.
your support.
And I want to thank Tim Ryan for getting us all moving on this.
Tim and I are good friends.
And I'd also like to thank Timmy, and Tim, would you like to come up and tell us a little bit about all the research you did, and maybe give us a brief history?
Right there's my wife, she'd come a lot of cemeteries with me too.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming today, and I'd like to say this first, that in honor of our veterans through the history of our nation from 1775 to the inception of the United States Marines until the present, without their dedication, we would not be here today doing this in honor of this gentleman who's been lost to history for 129 years. I couldn't be more honored to be involved with this, and to meet a gentleman, Mr. Mogazel, who was implemented this whole thing, and as I say, I couldn't be more honored. This gentleman's been lost to prosperity and history for 129 years, and he should be duly recognized. Just a quick brief history on Mr. Anderson. He was born in Boston, Massachusetts, and at the age of 8 years old, he was sent on an orphan train. And at that time, the orphan train would run through different cities and towns in the Commonwealth, all the way to Newport, Rhode Island, and people would go over to the orphan train and basically take these kids off the trains and put them to work at different farms or whatever it may be. And at the age of 8, Mr. Anderson was claimed by a family in Rainham, Massachusetts. At the age of 19, he enlisted in the Union Army, and through his service of being in the battles of Fredericksburg, Chancellorsville, Antietam, and other major battles of the Civil War, he was awarded with the Medal of Honor for his actions of capturing the battle flag and the color bearer of the 27th South Carolina Infantry. And at that time, it was vital that the flag was it signified that not only the unit itself, but it was like what they have in, if you watch, just an analogy, football today with the center and all of the people on the offensive line get together, the units would regroup on that flag. So it was vital that that flag stayed with that unit. It was to signify them to not only the history of the unit, but it would signify them to get together in order to regroup so they could return to battle. So in his actions at Weldon Railroad, he was honored with the Medal of Honor on September 13th of 1864. And through history, from what I understand, that they thought he had been buried. Let me just step back. Mr. Anderson, in turn, had returned from the Army. At the time, in 1864, he re-enlisted. He re-enlisted for a bonus of $325. At that time, that was big money. And what happened was the war was coming to an end, and the 18th, I believe, had merged with the 32nd Massachusetts. So in the end, when he was discharged and mustered out of the Army, he was in the 32nd Massachusetts. I believe it was the A Company of the 32nd Massachusetts, because other documents that we've received state that the Medal of Honor was given through A Company, but he was originally in H Company. Now, when he returned home, he had married a girl from Somerset, Massachusetts, in Taunton. And there was a 10-year span of time where no one knew through records of where he was. And that he had moved to Pawtucket, Rhode Island, or I should say Providence, and worked on the Worcester Railroad as a teamster. The gentleman who he was working with that day was not getting any help from Mr. Anderson on the other side of the railroad car and said, hey, what's going on? So he went around and looked, and sure enough, Mr. Anderson had died of a heart attack. So when he was interred, they thought he was going to be interred in the Somerset, the Anderson's family grave in Somerset, but he was not. And through research that Mr. Mogazel had done, he had come upon a return of death certificate stated that he was buried somewhere in Dayton. And that's where, after Mr. Mogazel had come into the barber shop in the summer, in June of this past summer, I had met him, and it just piqued my interest to see if the town ourselves had anyone who was born in Dayton who was a recipient of the Medal of Honor. And we do have one gentleman, his name is James Hesita, who is buried in the Westville Cemetery, and he was awarded the Medal of Honor for his actions at Fredericksburg. So through other research and Mr. Mogazel's contact, we have been emailing between ourselves, Dave Marvel, our veterans agent, Mr. Woods. I had given some information to one of our graves officials in town, who had in turn passed it on to Mr. Jack Costa. Mr. Jack Costa, through some research, had come to find out that this gentleman had to be buried in the Dayton Community Church Cemetery. Now, I've lived in town for 50 years and always walked through the cemetery and so on and so forth as a child, and probably walked by that site a million times and never realized the history of what was there. So now, the family, from what I understand, Mr. Anderson's family had absolutely no idea where he was buried. So as putting this all together, I couldn't be any more prouder that we have recovered this gentleman after 129 years. His family has been notified of his remains, of where he is. We have seen copies of the Medal of Honor and the battle flag that was captured in the battle at Weldon Railroad is now at Pamplin Park, Virginia, and was purchased for, I believe, the amount of about $72,000 back in, I think it was 1996. So that's encased in a glass case in a museum, and it's for prosperity. So, as I stated again, I'm honored to be here today, and I have the utmost respect for everyone who's been involved in this process. I couldn't be happier, and I appreciate your attention to this. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
If it wasn't for these two guys, I'd still be looking, right there, these two.
Thank you, Charlie.
Well, with your due diligence, and also with your niece who has gone through and through Ancestry.com, I'd like to recognize her. I've never met her, this is the first day I will, and it's a pleasure, as I say, and an honor to be involved with everyone who has gone through this process.
I have another niece, Timmy, she was involved, she's away right now, so I brought her mother instead.
I don't want to bore anybody with any more details, but back in the time, President Lincoln had gone to Congress and said to Congress that we need to go out and we need to honor our privates up until our first sergeants with a medal of some sort. So he had gone out and gone to Congress to say that we wanted to honor these gentlemen. The 2,000 medals were to be awarded in the Civil War. Only 1,520 were awarded at that time. And through history, when the medal was awarded, 326, I believe, were awarded for the capture of the enemy's battle flag. And there was another amount, I believe it was 120, that were awarded to Union. Yes, it was 138 for actions involving the saving or planting of the Union flag. So back in the day, this was a big thing, because you have to remember that these guys were going through a hail of bullets and a hail of artillery fire in order to capture the enemy's battle flag. And other research that I've done, I don't mean to step on anybody's toes in any of this, I've contacted the Veterans Administration in regards to this, and we would like to put a marker in front of this gentleman's grave that states that he was a Medal of Honor recipient, the years he served, and so on. And in fact, the VA has basically told me that prior to 1988, if the grave was unmarked, they would go out and provide a marker. But Mr. Anderson's grave has been provided with a headstone that has the Union shield on his headstone, which in actuality was a federal marker at that time. Now, they think that, I hate to use the term double jeopardy, but they think it's a term of double jeopardy, because they're saying he's already been recognized, but at that time, headstones of that sort were not marked with these gentlemen that had been Medal of Honor recipients. Now, we're in the process of sending paperwork to the VA in order for them to go out and have this gentleman, Mr. Marvel's holding up a copy of his headstone, what his headstone looks like, if the camera would pan over to Mr. Marvel. And we're in the processes of, Mr. Marvel also has other photographs that, of what we would like to do. And the VA would have no problem if we were to go out and put a marker on our own.
Cable.
But I just feel that through history, there's only been 3,458 recipients of the Medal of Honor.
I have another picture here for what we'd like to do for Mr. Anderson. This is the Medal of Honor, and this is the plaque that will go in front of the stone. So I'll hold this up. Oh, sorry about that, see if I can hold this straight right here. So, and anybody want to view this after, it'll be on the table. We did come up with a plan that if we can't get anything done by, we want to get this done by Memorial Day. So we're going to go through the channels and going to the VA and working with them. And at a certain time, if we feel like they're not going to help us out, we're going to go ahead and purchase this now. There's a person out in, excuse me here for a second, I think he's up north here, and he does a lot of monuments. They've been in business since 1862. So I contacted them, and basically they said they can make this for us. So we're still going to go through the efforts trying to find the information, but you know, it's going to be a certain cutoff where we're going to say, okay, they don't want to help us to assist in this project, we'll go ahead and purchase this on our own.
I'd just like to make another statement also. I'd be remorse not to mention a gentleman by the name of Don Morphy, who lives in Maryland, who has also been involved in research for many years in finding Medal of Honor recipients. He's in a quagmire right now that we are also, that he has discovered 45 veterans who have received the Congressional Medal of Honor. As I stated, there's only been 3,458 through history. And if, I would say 85% of these gentlemen have been recognized with a proper marker at their gravesite. And my own personal belief is that if the VA cannot go out and provide, okay, a marker of such sort that we are looking for and not be approved by the Veterans Administration, those people there should be ashamed of themselves. They should be ashamed of themselves. That's my own honest belief, because we have gone out and, well, these gentlemen have put their lives on the line for our freedom of why we're here in meeting today. That's just my own personal belief. I don't know how other people feel. And I'm going to do my darndest to make sure that this happens in a correct way. I called the White House yesterday, and I spoke to an individual that they'd like me to call back, and I'm going to receive a website address that I could send some information to them, and I'd like this to be forwarded directly to the President of the United States, because our President, Barack Obama, has gone out and awarded Medals of Honor to living recipients for the first time since Vietnam. Other medals have been awarded in the last 4 or 5 years. under the President of George Bush, and they were all posthumously awarded. And Staff Sergeant Salvatore Junta is the first living recipient to receive the Medal of Honor since Vietnam for his actions in combat in Afghanistan. And President Obama has been very vital and very instrumental in having this transpire. A few days ago, I believe it was maybe 10 days ago, the 442nd Regimental Combat Team, which is comprised of Sino-Japanese Americans, was the most highly decorated combat unit in the history of this nation. One of the gentlemen, after 60 years, was presented with the Medal of Honor. So we need to do what's right.
Thank you, Joe. Well, right now, I'd like to ask Mr. Richmond Tripp to come up and give us some history on his family and the ties with the 18th Massachusetts Infantry.
Well, when I read the history of Frederick Anderson, I was struck with a coincidence. In late September or October of 1864, there were so few members of the 9th, the 18th, and the 22nd Regiment, due to the fact that many men enlistments was over, they didn't re-enlist, or there were casualties. They all became members of the 32nd Massachusetts. And my great-grandfather, Sergeant Henry B. James, was sergeant of the 32nd. And he wrote a book, his Memories of the Civil War. And in here he tells of how the members from the 9th, the 18th, and 22nd became members of the 32nd, and they were known as the Veterans Brigade because they were all veterans. And a further coincidence, both Anderson and my great-grandfather were wounded in their left foot. The ball went right through their foot, broke the bones, and they were both in the hospital till the end of the war. But I found it was very interesting that he ended up in the 32nd because our family has always honored the 32nd Mass.
Thank you, Mr. Tripp. Thank you very much. Now I'd like to introduce the author and Civil War expert, Donald Thompson. Would you like to come up, sir? Just have a seat, sure.
And stand. I'll stand. Okay, good morning, everybody. Just want to correct something. I probably know more about the Civil War than the average citizen. Wouldn't call myself an expert because I know people that what they know compared to what I know, they could fit on the tip of their finger, but again, I know why. However, that said, you're looking at somebody who knows more about the 18th Massachusetts Infantry than anybody alive. There were 1,400 men that served with the 18th Mass. I can tell you at least 1,100 of them, the color of their eyes, how tall they were, the color of their hair, the complexion that they had, on and on. How this all got started, when I was a little kid, my father had a picture of my great-great-grandfather who lost his arm at Bethesda Church, and I grew up with that picture. And then when I became an adult, I toured battlefields in Virginia, and I'm looking at these battlefields and I'm saying, kind of stand there nodding my head. And I said, but what did the 18th Massachusetts do? I went looking, there was absolutely nothing that the 18th Massachusetts had committed to writing in the history. They're one of the few Massachusetts regiments that did not produce a history. In 1905, they had veterans who formed a committee with the purpose of writing the history, and then they just started dying out. So when I began with 10 pages of information on the regiment. And now, many years later, I am not exaggerating this, we have more than 1,500 pages of information on the regiment. I got an email not that long ago, and it was from Lynn, and Lynn said, "Do you know where Frederick Anderson is buried?" And I said, "Lynn, I don't, but a lot of people have been looking for Frederick Anderson, including Medal of Honor groups. Everybody had, either they didn't know where he was buried, or he was at this Anderson Family Cemetery in Somerset. You try to find the Anderson Family Cemetery, who knew? There are a lot of strange things that have happened in the course of my research in the 18th Massachusetts. Seems like every time we can't find anything, we find more. The last 4 days I was at Brown University copying letters written by a member of the 18th Massachusetts, including a diary. I'm going to have to make a second trip of another 4 days to complete it. But getting back to Frederick, we have no idea. And then
Charlie, please.
this gentleman, Charlie, Lynn said he couldn't understand what the fuss was about. And you're my hero. You are my hero, finding this grave. And I went with Timothy. Strange thing. I rode past cemetery this morning, just kind of look at the town of Dayton. Never been to Dayton before. I have deep roots in the town of Lowell, but as far as I know, didn't have anybody who resided in Dayton. But I'm driving down the road and kind of taking my time and realized somebody was right on my tail, and I pulled over, and then this gentleman pulls up in a car beside me and rolls in his window. He said, "Are you Donald Thompson?" I'm saying, okay. I thought that was kind of strange. So he asked Timothy, "How did you know it was me?" But anyway, we went to the cemetery, and as we're pulling up to the grave, I had a very emotional reaction. The 18th Massachusetts, I refer to them very affectionately as they are my dead guys. They are the people that I chase. I take care of their monument at Gettysburg 2 times a year. I go up on the 2nd of July to Gettysburg every year. And, you know, Charlie, I just have to thank you again. This is big. This is big. And I salute you.
Thank you, Don.
Charlie or Bob, do you have anything else you'd like to say
No, I just
before we
want to thank
leave?
Bobby for my support, my wife Jeanette, my 2 nieces, and
Anyone
the
else?
guy from Dayton. Thank you for your help. Now, you own them. You take care of them.
Thank you, Charlie. Okay, we're gonna be leaving here and heading to the cemetery, and we're gonna be placing a wreath on the grave of Frederick C. Anderson. And we have a Civil War reenactor in the back of the hall. I don't know if the cable has gotten him. And he's gonna fire a volley of shots, and that will conclude our Veterans Day ceremony for Frederick C. Anderson.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Are you gentlemen going to go to the schools with this information? I think the kids of Dayton, I think the kids in Southern New England should know this.
Right.
Well, it's funny you haven't mentioned that because I was also involved with we had a football coach in town, just a different subject, that he has won his 200th game. There's only been 43 high school coaches in the state that have done it. I had gone up on the night that they recognized him, and it dawned on me to say that, wait a minute, he's a history teacher. So after everything was all said and done, I chased him down the parking lot, I presented him some of the paperwork and showed it to him, and he just happened to mention to me, this is, hey, that's pretty awesome that you guys ended up finding this guy after 129 years. So I don't know if anybody is gonna make any type of presentation. The gentleman's name is David Driscoll. I could maybe get in touch with Mr. Driscoll and someone at the high school and have Mr. Mulgazer come up and give some type of presentation. I think it would be great.
I think it'd be great, because kids today, I teach the Fall River school system in an after-school program, teach Fall River history, and the kids today are clueless. History is not on the MCAS exam, so it's shoved to the back burner. It's included with English or writing or something like that, but it's not. In Fall River, I can't say how it is in Dayton, but it's not taught as a specific subject. So what we're doing, we're losing our history, especially our local history.
Mr. Mulgazer had piqued my interest personally myself with all this that had transpired. And we've all watched Ken Burns' documentary on the Civil War. You know, our late historian Shelby Ford, who basically recites what gentleman said at that time. I'm honored to be here with Mr. Thompson, who has done extensive research on the 18th. And as I say again, I couldn't be more honored to be in a group of such fine individuals. And I just hope that we continue with what we're going to do. And as our gentleman in the back, as the teacher says, that as much as Mr. Mulgazer wants to admit this is big, man. You know, this is big. I tried to tell him that on the phone. He keeps telling me, you know, he's so humble that this is huge. I've tried to go out myself personally and notify the different agencies on TV, and there was a little 20-second blip on NBC, on Channel 10, which is our local NBC affiliate, that happened to mention Mr. Mulgazer. You know, it was only 20 seconds long, but this gentleman had been lost to history for 129 years. Not even his family knew where he was buried. So I just think, I would like to see something that maybe someone, you know, forward this to maybe Ken Burns, and may pique his interest. Who knows? Who knows? Maybe we could have, you know, a documentary done on the history of the Massachusetts 18th, because I've read records that had been written by Mr. Thompson along by a gentleman, Mr. Quattrucci from Rainham, to give brief history of the Massachusetts 18th, and it was pretty intriguing. So it's just, you know.
Yeah, I'd just like to add that next Saturday, I'm going to actually be going to the museum in Petersburg, Virginia, to see the 27th South Carolina flag. Unfortunately, they're not going to allow me to take a picture of it, but we'll be there, and that's kind of icing on the cake.
They won't allow you to take a picture of it?
They will not. The policy of the museum is they don't allow.
I'd like to see it myself.
But they are, they are going to get a picture for me that they will take, and, you know, I can let everybody know and be glad to circulate it. I'll probably have to pay additional money to do that, but.
It'd be nice to see the picture.
Okay, I would like to thank everyone for coming today. And to follow up on your idea, sir, I will contact the superintendent of schools and see where we can go with this. I think it would be a nice theme for our Memorial Day, and also our Dayton Tricentennial coming up this year, 300 years. So we do have an extensive program coming up for our 300th Tricentennial, and we are having a reenactment, and there's a lot of festivities going to be going on throughout the year, starting 2012. So I will contact the superintendent, and we'll see what we can do.
This brings history to life.
Yeah,
This
it
puts a
sure
face
does.
to it.
And I would really like
And
to,
a name to it. And I think it's very important that it be used as an educational tool.
and I would love to, I'd like to thank everyone involved, especially Charlie and Bob, and all the work that everyone in town has done to locate this gentleman. And I would like to head to the cemetery now. That should be all cable. Thank you.
Mr. Anderson's great-great-granddaughter is kind of coming up with 3.
everyone. Thanks, first on the Veterans Day for the town of Dayton. Please stand for our national anthem. Detail 10, hut! Present, hut! You may be seated.
Good morning. I don't know where's a good place to sit. I'll sit next to our friends, right? So, good morning. My name is Mallory Ernstein. I'm the former town administrator of this great town, Dayton. And thank you to the Dayton Selectmen for allowing me to hop over town lines and join you today. I had the pleasure of working on this awesome event where we're honoring Frederick Anderson, who is kind of a long-lost soldier. The story is very interesting, where one day Mr. Charlie Mogazel, who was a wonderful, wonderful person I had the pleasure of meeting, and he walked into a local barbershop, and the barbershop happened to be owned by the veterans agent, and he started asking about a long-lost vet. And that commenced the search for Frederick Anderson, who was here the whole time. And there was, in 2011, I believe, a small little ceremony recognizing him, and we found out a lot about him and how cool he was. So today it's even more of an honor because the family has graciously donated the Medal of Honor that he received to us, and we're going to have it on display, and we are a very grateful community for that. The selectmen had proclaimed, I think in 2019 or 20, it's been so long that we've developed this program here because COVID changed our plans, but they declared Dayton a Medal of Honor community because of Mr. Anderson. They've also developed this proclamation that I'll read to you today, recognizing his life. Proclamation and Certificate of Recognition. On March 24th, 1842, was orphaned by age 8 and lived in a workhouse in South Boston called the House of Industry. And whereas Private Frederick Charles Anderson was taken at age 14 by the Orphan Train, a controversial welfare program that transported orphaned, homeless, and abandoned children out of cities and to rural areas, where he was selected by Raynham farmer Stillman Wilbur and put to work on the farm. And whereas Private Frederick Charles Anderson left the farm to enlist in the Union Army at age 19, joining Company A of the 18th Regiment Massachusetts Volunteer Infantry, which participated in the Second Battle of Bull Run, the Battle of Antietam, the Battle of Fredericksburg, Battle of Chancellorsville, Battle of Gettysburg, and the fateful Siege of Petersburg and the Battle of Globe Tavern. And whereas Private Frederick Charles Anderson valiantly and in close combat captured the flag of the 27th South Carolina Infantry Regiment and its flag bearer during the Battle of Globe Tavern, effectively suspending their ability to communicate with the rest of the Confederate Army and turning the battle in the favor of the Union Army by retaking the Weldon Railroad, a brave act for which he was awarded a Medal of Honor on September 13, 1864, by General George Meade, commander of the Army of the Potomac. during the first ever presentation of such a medal for conspicuous gallantry and good conduct displayed in capturing on the field of battle flags from the enemy. And whereas Private Frederick Charles Anderson continued military service until discharge on June 29, 1865, after which he began a family, settled in Somerset until his sudden death at age 40 of apoplexy, and was laid to rest in the Dighton Community Church Cemetery. And whereas Private Frederick Charles Anderson is a Civil War hero and one of the first ever Medal of Honor recipients whose family has generously donated his medal to the town of Dighton to preserve Private Anderson's patriotism and dedication to his country and to share his integral role in the Civil War. We, the Board of Selectmen of the town of Dighton, do hereby recognize the historical significance and valiance of Private Frederick Charles Anderson, and do hereby proclaim the town of Dighton as a Medal of Honor community. A witness whereof we have unto set our hands and caused the great seal of the town of Dighton to be affixed this 30th day of March, 2021. Signed, the Board of Selectmen. I'd just like to give this to Cecilia. Wish I could shake your hand. Thank you so much. And if Senator Pacheco would like to.
Thank you very much, Mallory, and let me just thank you for the outstanding work that has been done, getting all of the information that we're so honored to hear about today. For a true American hero. And you heard Mallory just speak about the battles of Fredericksburg and Gettysburg, when our country very young country at the time was torn apart. And this young man went to fight for what we're so proud today to call America. It's a tremendous honor to be here, and to be here with the family that has chosen the town of Dighton to present this hero's Medal of Honor to the town. And it was appropriate that the town Board of Selectmen took the action that they did, naming the town a Medal of Honor community. So I want to congratulate the Board of Selectmen for their work on this, and Mallory and everyone that has been involved in the veterans community here for the work that has been done on this. It is a place when people that like our history as a country. And right now we're in a bit of a battle in terms of ideals about the soul of this nation. And I don't know how many had the opportunity this past week on TV. I had the opportunity, as we all do with COVID, at home, trying to figure out what you're going to do next, and watch the special on Lincoln and the history of our country. The hero that is buried here in Dighton was part of that history in the most real way that anybody could possibly be, being at the battles of Fredericksburg and Gettysburg. So God bless him, God bless his family, as I read the Commonwealth of Massachusetts State Senate official citation to the town of Dayton. Be it known that the Massachusetts Senate hereby extends its congratulations to the town of Dayton in recognition of the presentation to the town of Dayton, Massachusetts, of the United States Army Medal of Honor by the family of the late Private Frederick Charles Anderson. The medal was awarded in 1864 to the Civil War soldier. And be it further known that the Massachusetts Senate extends its best wishes for continued success. In this citation, be signed by the President of the Senate. It is signed by the President of the Senate. It is my honor to present it today to the Board of Selectmen on behalf of the Senate, and we hope that this citation will be set aside in Town Hall, and perhaps the individual I'm going to introduce now, Pat and I think this is significant enough of an event, such an historic event, that a joint resolution should be adopted by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. That Pat just gave me a thumbs up, so I can now officially say that we will present a joint resolution that will mirror the resolution that Mallory read. So it will be adopted not only here in the town of Dayton for your community history, but it will be engrossed and enacted at the state level and adopted as part of Massachusetts history. With that, let me introduce my colleague in the legislature, who I'm very proud to serve with, Patricia Haddad.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. It is, I say this all the time, but it's an incredible honor to be able to represent Dayton. Dayton is a town that from the minute I came here proved to me that they're very special. They're very different because they make sure that every single significant event for a veteran is honored right here in Dayton. From just a Veterans Day celebration or a Memorial Day celebration to something as important as this, to do the work, to find out the history. So I'm so honored to be part of this today. I also brought a citation for the town and for the family. Perhaps it's something you want to keep, but I agree with Mark. When we first learned about this, we weren't sure if it would actually fit into the criteria that we are required to follow for a citation, but now we realize, a set of resolutions, but now we realize that it's more than appropriate to honor this day and to honor Private Frederick Charles Anderson. I just want to underscore everything that Mark said about the important battles, about the history of our country, and the part that Dayton has played in small and large portions. So thank you to the family. This is so incredibly, I don't know, what's the right word? What's the right words for something that holds so much meaning, that is so important, not only in our history, but to families and to what we are as a nation and what Dayton is as a town. So thank you very much for the honor of being here today. And thank you to the town always, always, for being those people who will not let anything slip by you, that it's anything and everything is important in your lives. So thank you very much for being those people.
Dayton Board of Selectmen.
To the relatives of Mr. Anderson, I'm Nancy Goulart, member of the Board of Selectmen. I want to express how really significant it is that we were all here today. I remember when we had the actual service here back in 2012, when we had our 300th anniversary, and that's when it first came to light that Frederick's resting place had been found. So on behalf of the people of Dayton, past, present, and future, thank you very much for honoring us with this medal. It is such a significant piece of history that I'm sure generations will cherish. So thank you very much for coming. I know you've come quite a distance, but welcome to Dayton, and again, thank you very much.
Colonel Robert Perry. Morning, ladies and gentlemen. I think we have enough distance here, so don't mind if I take my mask off. In my opinion, in the history of our nation's fate has hung in the balance 4 times. The first time was during our own American Revolution. That could have gone either way. The second was the War of 1812, when the British decided they wanted their colonies back. Fortunately, we succeeded. Third was World War II, when the fate of the entire free world hung in the balance. But to me, the most important is our own Civil War. We were fighting each other literally to determine whether we would remain as one nation or become 2 independent nations. Private Frederick Anderson was a veteran of that war. During every crisis our nation has faced, our veterans, whether as militia during the birth of our nation or as members of the armed forces, have demonstrated their ability through courage and dedication to protect this nation and its citizens. And amongst all those veterans, past and present, is a very special, a very elite group of veterans, our Medal of Honor recipients, who have demonstrated through extraordinary courage and dedication under fire and extraordinary dedication to our nation that they have certainly earned that recognition. Private Frederick Anderson was was a member of that elite group of Medal of Honor recipients. So I thank Private Anderson for his dedication to duty and for his role in ensuring that the United States of America endured. Thank you, Private Anderson.
At this time, we're going to have the transfer of the medal to Colonel Perry. This is a U.S. Army medal, so the protocol demands that it goes to our highest ranking officer in the town of Dayton, which is Colonel Robert Perry.
Thank you very much. This is an absolute, ladies and gentlemen, I want to say something from my heart. It is an absolute honor, an absolute privilege to hold this medal. Most people don't understand what it takes to be awarded a medal of the United States military. To be awarded the highest decoration requires the highest level of courage and valor under fire, in battle. I am honored to accept this medal for the town of Dayton. Honor.
Perry. Mr. Woods, we need you to help us hold the flag. Tim, can you help us hold the flag? Dave? Can you help?
Sure.
I know you gotta do both things, but you can do that.
You want to Yeah, sure. Move around a little bit.
Rifle volley.
Sorry. Oh. I hope so. You too, baby. Yeah. Oh, this is beautiful. I know.
Detail dismissed.
Thank you.
This concludes our ceremony here at this site.
I don't recognize anybody anymore.
Okay. Welcome everybody to the Medal of Honor Memorial Bridge. This is the first time we've done this, and it is quite an honor. I've been to Gettysburg and we've seen the reenactments, and when they fire the cannons and the muskets, the smoke completely fills the whole battlefield in no time, depending on the wind. And the flag was their only form of communications because the ground is fairly level like it is here. So with the flag on the staff, the soldiers could see that. They'd rally around the flag and have some idea where their lines were. So for Private Anderson to get behind the lines and take that flag and the flag bearer, which is virtually impossible because the other Confederate soldiers would have been around that flag. We don't have that information how that happened, but it is quite extraordinary when you think about what he accomplished. There was a person by the name of Charlie McGeisel. He was a Korean War vet, and he was the one that spearheaded this move to uncover graves that have been lost to history. The grave wasn't lost, but the common thought was that Mr. Anderson was buried in Somerset, because in the 1800s, Somerset, Dighton, Berkeley, it was all the same. So it really wasn't that particular where he was buried at that time. So they never could find the grave because they were looking in the wrong town. Mr. McGeisel came up, and with the help of the veterans agent then, Mr. Robert Woods, and Tim Rhines, where is he? He's here somewhere. There he is, Tim Rhines.
Come with Mrs. McGeisel.
Okay. They, I want to say they uncovered the grave, but they really uncovered it. It was there all the time, but there's no inscription on that stone that would lead you to believe that he was a Medal of Honor recipient. It's just another white stone. So they did that about 12 years ago, I think that was, and we had planned to do this last year, and because of COVID we couldn't. Mr. McGeisel passed away in December. We were hoping to have him here for this, but that didn't happen. So as we go forward, I'd like to have Mr. Woods say a few words because he's instrumental in this whole endeavor. Mr. Woods?
Yeah.
I'll take my mask off.
Absolutely. Thank you all very much for coming. The day that Charles Monzago came into my barber shop, I served as a veterans agent for the town of Dighton, and he came in looking for this Medal of Honor recipient in the town of Dighton, and went on to tell us the story about how he came on the orphan train and went into the military. And when Charlie was asking, where could we find this gentleman? I said, well, there's 55 cemeteries in the town of Dighton. I said, it's going to be like finding a needle in a haystack. And, you know, as being the veterans agent, as Dawn knows, you know, it's a demanding job, and I have a lot of living veterans that I had to take care of. And Mr. Joe Rhines, Timothy Rhines, was in the barber shop that day. And week after week, he kept asking me if I had found Mr. Anderson. And I said, you know, Joe, I got a lot of living veterans that I need to take care of. I don't have time to go through 55 cemeteries to look for this gentleman. I said, but you have nothing better to do. So why don't you go find him, right? And he set out on a mission to find Frederick C. Anderson. And he found a needle in a haystack. It was amazing. With the help of Mr. Rhines and Jack Coster at the community cemetery or community church, it was like an act of God, how they found him. And it was amazing. And Mrs. Mongeisel, thank you very much. Your husband was a true gentleman.
Thank you. He looked forward to being here.
He was a true gentleman, and it was my pleasure to meet him and to help him. But really, it was a collaborative, how we found him. It wasn't me, it wasn't Timothy, it wasn't Mr. Costa. It was the whole community that came together to do this. And like Colonel Perry said earlier, it's an honor and it's a privilege. Thank you all very much for coming.
Thank you.
That cemetery that we just left is the largest cemetery in Dighton. We have over 400 veterans buried in that cemetery. Some very influential historical figures are buried in that cemetery. At this time, we're going to uncover the sign. Colonel Perry, I think you should do that.
Whatever it takes.